Following the release of new exclusive polling from Pix 11 Emerson College and the Hill, it was very positive for Democrat Zoran Mamdani. He's back on the campaign trail for mayor today. He's actually sitting and painting with seniors in this center in Clinton Hill. There's been a lot of focus on New Yorkers over the age of 50 in the closing days of the campaign.
I know coming here with just 5 days until the election, it is an opportunity. But I come here also to speak about the work that we will do after Election Day.
The 34-year-old Democratic Socialist Assemblyman was projecting confidence hours after new polling shows him running away with the race for New York City mayor. Our poll has him with a 25-point lead over former Governor Andrew Cuomo. It's the widest margin of any general election poll recently released. Cuomo has been really banking on rooms like the one Mamdani visited Thursday to deliver him a victory. But that same polling shows Mamdani, whose base of support is generally among younger voters, is also doing very well with those over the age of 50, better than Cuomo and better than Republican candidate Curtis Sliwa. Mamdani has spoken often lately about fighting for every last vote, despite his status as the favorite. Looking at numbers like ours this morning, how do you not be complacent? How do you not be overconfident?
Every day we wake up, we look at the polls. I was speaking to my mother this morning, and she was asking me, what do I make of all these polls? And I was telling her, the best thing to do right now is canvass. Is get out there and actually make the case to New Yorkers. We're going to knock on more doors than we've seen in this city before. We're going to do it with 100,000 volunteers, and we're going to show that the city's ready for change.
There is no on-the-job training. You will cost New Yorkers their lives. That's why he is dangerously inexperienced.
Meanwhile, Cuomo continued to assail Mamdani while campaigning with Mayor Eric Adams and members of the city's African community. He's banking on an unprecedented surge of early voting by New Yorkers to deliver him an upset victory.
I think the polls have no idea what they're talking about because they have never seen this kind of turnout before.
Early voting continues in the city through this coming Sunday, and the pace has really been incredible compared to 4 years ago. 5 times as many people have already voted compared to 2021 when the city eventually elected Mayor Eric Adams. In Clinton Hill, Brooklyn, Henry Rossoff, Pix 11 News.
Pix 11 is your election headquarters. In just a matter of days, New Yorkers will be heading to the polls for early voting in the Democratic mayoral primary.
And this morning, we're joined by Queens State Assemblyman Zoran Mamdani, whose recent surge in the polls and key endorsements has him right on the heels of the leading contender, Andrew Cuomo. So good morning to you. Thanks so much for taking the time to be here with us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's
How
a pleasure.
you feeling?
Feeling good, feeling excited.
Good. I mean, there's a lot to digest here. So let's take a look at the stats, the numbers. You're in the polls. So the recent Pix 11 Emerson College Hill poll, you gained 23 points in recent days. You gained up 2 key endorsements from Latino lawmakers. You have Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Nydia Velázquez. But if you look at your biggest opponent, Andrew Cuomo, he just was endorsed by former opponent, State Senator Jessica Ramos. So it also appears that he's gaining Black and Latino voters. How are you taking this all in, and how do you analyze what the numbers are saying?
So we are right where we want to be. We have changed what was a 40-point race into one that is now in single digits. And that's because of the fact that New Yorkers are hungry for a different kind of politics, a politics that puts working people first. And to have the endorsements of Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez and Nydia Velázquez, it is an incredible stamp of support from 2 of the leading fighters in our city and in our country for working class New Yorkers and Americans.
You have been outspoken in your support for Palestine. That puts you at odds with many in the city's large Jewish population. How can you, if you can, win them over at this time?
You know, I always think about what Mayor Koch said, which is if you agree with me on 9 out of 12 issues, vote for me. 12 out of 12, see a psychiatrist. And it's been a pleasure speaking to New Yorkers across the 5 boroughs, including many Jewish New Yorkers, about my stance on universal human rights and my belief that there has to be an equal valuing of life, be it Israeli or Palestinian. And I've found many Jewish New Yorkers who support our campaign. It's why we're second with Jewish New Yorkers. And I've also found that with those who have disagreements with me on Israeli government policy, there's still an ability to understand that disagreement as being rooted in shared humanity.
You know, last week during the debate, Andrew Cuomo had said that nobody really knows who you are. You don't have a lot of experience. And you've even admitted that there's quite a chunk of New Yorkers that don't know who you are. So how do you respond to that? And how do you work in the next couple of weeks to change that?
Well, you know, when we started this race, we were polling at 1%, and that was about the number of New Yorkers who knew who I was. And we have changed that over 7 months by building an unprecedented campaign. We have 34,000 volunteers. We knocked 15,000 doors in just the last 24 hours, and more than 900,000 now over the course of the campaign. And ultimately, what it's showing is a campaign that is bringing so many New Yorkers into a political process that they historically haven't participated in. And that movement has meant that no matter what I'm doing in a day, there are so many more New Yorkers knocking on the doors of their neighbors to tell them about this campaign. And that has meant that we've gone from 1% now to being single digits away from winning this race. And, you know, about a quarter of New Yorkers have yet to hear from us, and that's our job over the next 2.5 weeks, is to introduce ourselves, introduce our campaign to make the most expensive city in America affordable.
I want to ask you, too, about what's going on in LA right now. Days of protest, responses by the people to the White House's anti-migrant crackdown with the military there. Protests happening here as well. The NYPD taking those into custody over the weekend. As you are watching this unfold, are you thinking what you would do if you were in the position of mayor?
Absolutely. I think what we're seeing in Los Angeles is yet another example of the Trump administration's embrace of authoritarianism. We are seeing not just an attack on migrants, but an attack on the very fabric of this country. And we know that when the Trump administration does things like this, they are trial runs for what they would like to do elsewhere in the country. And it's not intellectual for us in New York City. We've already seen New Yorkers who have been detained, whether in their apartment building lobby or just going for a regular check-in. And this is personal to me. I moved to this city when I was 7 years old. I got my citizenship in this city. And it's a city that I love, and yet it's a city that I know for many immigrants, they are terrified now to get out of their home and walk around their own neighborhoods. And we need a mayor who will look authoritarianism in the eye and not see a reflection of themselves.
What would you do then to protect migrants?
I think there are a few things. The first is that we know there are city tools that can be used that would increase the likelihood of people remaining with their families. Namely, when an immigrant New Yorker is in detention proceedings, if they have legal representation, there's an 11-fold increase in their ability to stay at home. And so the city needs to start funding that legal representation. That's something that I would do. The other thing is to ensure that the NYPD are not serving as accomplices to what ICE is doing in this city. We have already seen ICE agents arrest immigrants who are going for regular check-ins at Federal Plaza, where blocks away from where I got my citizenship. And we have had a pastor be arrested by the NYPD. We have had New Yorkers who are standing up in opposition to that be arrested, thrown onto the ground, thrown into police vans. We do not need to be helping Donald Trump with his attempt to fulfill a campaign promise to build the largest deportation force this country has ever seen.
On the issue of public safety, gun violence, do you support hiring more NYPD officers to kind of help with those issues?
I support sustaining the number that we have today. And the reason that I say that is when I speak to police officers, I know they have a critical role in creating public safety. And I also know from them that they joined the force to take on serious crimes. But they are now being asked to respond to nearly every failure of the social safety net. The same officer who thought he was going to be responding to shootings is having to pick up the phone for mental health calls. And that's true for the department, which now has hundreds of thousands of those calls they deal with a year. So we've put forward a proposal to create a Department of Community Safety that would focus on the mental health crisis and gun violence, scaling up evidence-based policies that have already worked in the city and across the country, and allowing police to focus on serious crimes and ensuring that they can resolve far more cases than the 35% that they were able to resolve in the first quarter of this year.
Obviously public safety is a huge concern for the folks here in New York. But the one thing, well, I should say the two things that New Yorkers, their ears perk up is when they hear you say that you're going to put a rent freeze, make sure that happens, and also free city buses. How are you going to do that?
So there's two clear ways. The first is a rent freeze applies to rent-stabilized tenants. There's more than 2 million New Yorkers who live in those kinds of apartments. And the mayor has the power to do that through something called the Rent Guidelines Board. Composed of 9 members, the mayor appoints each one. Previous mayor froze the rent 3 times. It's just a question of political will. And it's why the landlords of those units, their lobby group just donated $2.5 million to Andrew Cuomo, because they know what I know. He's going to raise the rent, I'm going to freeze the rent. So it's a good business investment for them to get on the side of the landlords, whereas tenants know that I'm the person who's going to put nearly $7 billion back into their pockets, into our local economy. And buses would cost about $700 million a year to make free. Now, this is something that the city would pay in part, but the state would be a large partner in this. And I've put forward a plan that would match the state's top corporate tax rate of 7.25% to that of New Jersey, 11.5%. Just matching our regional neighbor raises $5 billion a year. That could make free buses, a reality about 5-6 times over.
Very quickly, for smaller landlords who say, I'm not making what the big guys make, how can you protect them and freeze rents?
So this is a very good question because of the fact that we've seen this mayor not just exacerbate a cost of living crisis for tenants, but also for homeowners and for landlords, right? This is a mayor who said he would fix the property tax system. He's instead defended it in court and lost every time. That's a property tax system that makes it very difficult to maintain that housing. Additionally, he's raised the water bill to the highest in 13 years. He supported Con Ed when they wanted to increase the gas and electric by $65 a month. I know that because I was in those negotiations on the other side. So to those small homeowners whose statistics may not match up with the larger picture of a 12% increase in profits for those landlords, there is a relief program they can apply to if they open their books and show that their ratio isn't where it needs to be. But they will also know that I'll be a mayor fighting to reduce their costs as well.
All right, well, thank you so much. The big issues here is Mamdani. Thank you for coming by this morning.
Thank you so much. It's a real pleasure.
Right,
and Pix 11, I'm sorry, also hosting a forum with the Democratic mayoral candidates asking key questions about the future of New York City. It's tomorrow, Wednesday, June 11th. The forum, hosted by our own Dan Manarino, kicks off at 6:30 p.m.
He said it right. It's a historic moment here, right, as we watch this all play out. Eileen, thank you very much as the numbers continued to come in. Remember, the key number was that 50%, but when you heard Andrew Cuomo speak, it sounded like he was conceding, as Eileen and John Liu just talked about. So let's get to Henry Rossoff now. Over at the Andrew Cuomo headquarters right now, a very different mood, an empty room now that the candidate has left the podium, Henry. Not the night he expected, especially with the first round. In almost every poll and hours that he called the outlier, every poll had him winning this first round. So what did he have to say? Because it really did sound like a concession speech.
With the polling that we saw leading up to this election, this is objectively an absolutely stunning result. Perhaps the most stunning result since a congresswoman by the name of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez won a Democratic primary. Nobody thought she would win against Congressman Joe Crowley, who'd been in office for many, many years. Dan, you are right to interpret what we heard from former Governor Andrew Cuomo as something of a concession speech. He said it was Mr. Mamdani's night. He said he ran a great campaign for how bitter this campaign is growing in the closing days, with Cuomo questioning his Mr. Mamdani's experience and commitment to Jewish New Yorkers. He was gracious and considerate. He also didn't seem like he was charging toward a general election. I know he told you, Dan, point blank, that he would seek a third party line, the fight and deliver independent party line he was developing. He sounded more cautious than that. He wanted to see the numbers, the ranked choice voting fully done out, which we're expecting to be done next week, which at this point all but certainly will result in Mr. Mamdani being named the Democratic nominee. Of course, we got to crunch the numbers, but it seems very likely based on all the polling and this result. Listen to Mr. Cuomo and what he had to say. It does not sound like this is a straight line for him running as an independent in November.
I want to applaud the Assemblyman for a really smart and good and impactful campaign. Tonight is his night. He deserved it. He won. And we're going to take a look. We'll make some decisions. But I love each and every one of you, and I thank you for what you've done. Thank you very much. Thank you.
So we're going to take a look and make decisions. Certainly not I'm fighting on to November, Dan. But for now, live in West Village, Henry Rossoff at Pix 11 News.
Yeah, I mean, it was just 2 weeks ago where he had a very different tune, Henry, when I spoke to him and said, if you do not win, will you be on the ballot in November? I'll be on the ballot in November.
Pix Pix 11 is your local election headquarters. New polling shows the underdog in the race for New York City mayor may now be the new leader.
The latest figures putting Zohran Mamdani ahead of former Governor Andrew Cuomo, who's considered the frontrunner. Pix 11's Julie Millay is here with the latest figures that are changing, Julie.
Yeah, it could be a significant shift now 2 weeks before the Democratic primary. Good morning to both of you. This, of course, coming after Mamdani got that major endorsement from Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Mamdani had emerged as a potential frontrunner earlier in the race. Now, independent polling from Politico shows the Democratic Socialist beating frontrunner Andrew Cuomo 35% to 31%. The poll was conducted last week after the candidates faced off in their first televised debate. Mamdani is known for his focus on affordability, including proposals like free bus service and rent freezes on rent-stabilized apartments. Political analyst Trip Yang says he appears to be gaining serious ground.
What this really shows is that this is a toss-up race. Andrew Cuomo can be beaten. And look, when the emperor doesn't have the full amount of clothes, to all the constellation of Democratic organizations, labor unions, activists, elected officials who don't like Andrew Cuomo, now that they see that he can be beaten, to all of them come out.
But Andrew Cuomo's campaign says not so fast. They point to a recent poll from their campaign, which still shows him winning by 12 points. That's 56% to 44%. The Democratic primary now just 2 weeks away. Those candidates will be going head-to-head again tonight in the latest mayoral debate that's happening this evening on New York 1. We'll have to see what happens after tonight's debate. Vanessa and Justin.
Early voting has finished for the Democratic mayoral primary, and in-person voting is tomorrow.
Yes, now a new poll running the likely numbers for who could come out on top shows a possible upset. Pix 11's Kirsten Nicole here with a closer look at those details. Good morning, Kirsten.
It's not over until it's over. And we're at an interesting point right now, right? We're between the early voting. We're between primary day. Andrew Cuomo's support has stayed steady over the past month. Starts out with the most votes, but as we all know, ranked choice voting is in play here. And as we go through the simulation and rounds of voting, a different victor emerges. Take a look at how this is predicted to play out in the last major poll before primary day from Emerson College, Pix 11 and The Hill. Andrew Cuomo with first round of voting, maintaining his lead with 36%. Mamdani pulling a very close second at 34%, and Brad Lander rounding out the top three with 13%. Let's take a look at the rest of the candidates. Adrian Adams pulls 8%, Scott Stringer with 3%, Zellner Myrie with 2%. Now, this doesn't take into account the 4% of undecided voters, and there's a margin of error of 3.4%. Now, as the simulation plays out, Cuomo keeps that lead until the 8th and final round, when Lander is eliminated and the majority of those second choice ballots flow to Mamdani, pushing him into the winner's position, 52% to Cuomo's 48%. It is a stunning rise for the 33-year-old assembly member from Queens, who was taking 1% of the vote when we first saw the polls in this race 5 months ago. The number of undecided voters has steadily declined. It's currently sitting at 4%. And these are tight margins between the candidates, also of 4%. Now, along the way, Mamdani has secured key endorsements from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Bernie Sanders. There's been cross-endorsement from Brad Lander as a second-choice candidate. Cuomo getting an important endorsement from President Bill Clinton as well this weekend. Interesting trends teased out from this Emerson College Pix 11, The Hill poll, along racial, ethnic, age lines. Under 50 voters supporting Mamdani 2-1. Cuomo leading in the over 50 and over 60 categories. Cuomo leading in those without a 4-year college degree. Black and Hispanic voters breaking for Cuomo by about 60% to 40%, but Mamdani leading among white and Asian voters. College educated supporting Mamdani by 62%. Men supporting Mamdani at 56%. Women supporting Cuomo at 52%. Now, since early voting started, we've seen nearly 400,000 New Yorkers cast those primary ballots, 384,338 early voters to be exact. Sources close to Cuomo's campaign insisting that they have their own poll numbers contradicting
this showing that their candidate is actually up by double digits. Another factor, guys, this dangerous heat. Standing in line to vote tomorrow is going to be an issue for people. That's why the early voting is always encouraged, that people get out there with that heat warning for some voters. So much going on with all of this.
Yeah, those numbers really showing every vote counts.
Absolutely. Now, a race to win the margins, effectively.
A race to win the margins, Justin.
All right, Kirsten, thank you so much.
Sure.
And stay right here with the Pix 11 News. We will have complete coverage of the final moments of the primary campaigns. And tomorrow, we'll be live at polling places as voters cast their ballots. And of course, we'll have all the results when those polls close tomorrow night.
Well, Mayor Eric Adams opened up about the obstacles his campaign is facing, including how rumors is making it so much harder for him to raise funds.
New York City Mayor Eric Adams, thanks.
During a candid discussion on Politics Nation with Al Sharpton, Mayor Eric Adams addressed ongoing challenges in his re-election campaign, stemming from persistent media rumors about his possible withdrawal.
I've stated for the last few months what I was going to do, and you're seeing an undermining of my campaign.
He explained that constant reports suggesting he would drop out is hurting his fundraising and creating confusion among voters, making it difficult to raise the money needed to compete effectively. Adams detailed how 6 to 7 weeks of unfounded media stories, ranging from rumors about him going to Saudi Arabia to HUD or meeting President Trump at a Yankees game, have persisted despite his denials.
So you have to ask the question, what is the real agenda here?
Despite these setbacks, Adams says he's strategizing with his team to secure funding for campaign essentials like commercials, mailers, and staff.
When you see what I have undergone for the last 7 weeks, it has hurt our ability, and we got to make the right decision. I'm going to make the right decision for the city of New York, a city I love.
Meanwhile, Zohran Mamdani leads the race with roughly 45% support, holding a substantial advantage over former Governor Andrew Cuomo at about 25%, and Republican Curtis Sliwa trailing behind.
Yeah, good morning to you, Craig and Vanessa. There is more drama about to go down here at LaGuardia College tonight than what we get to see on the Great White Way. We have 3 candidates that are still very much in this race, but if one of them were to step aside, a race that clearly belongs to Zohran Mamdani could go either way.
Mamdani continues to hold an insurmountable lead over former Governor Andrew Cuomo in the race for New York City mayor, as long as Republican candidate Curtis Sliwa stays in it. The latest AARP Gotham Analytics poll is showing Mamdani with 43%, Cuomo 29%, and Sliwa 19%. But here's the spoiler. If Sliwa exits, fewer than 4 percentage points separate the remaining 2 candidates. Mamdani 44.6% and Cuomo closing the gap with 40.7%. The most recent messaging has Mamdani talking money, vowing to scrutinize the billions of dollars the Department of Ed is spending. Cuomo promising big things, saying he'll take over parts of the subway system, and with his proven track record as governor with large capital construction projects like the Cuomo Bridge and the redo of LaGuardia Airport, he says that he'll now take over major subway build projects as well.
This election is the choice between capitalism and socialism. That is the choice.
This is the choice between a disgraced former governor and a vision for change. I am a democratic socialist who believes in the dignity of each and every New Yorker, the responsibility of city government to deliver for those New Yorkers that which is necessary to live a dignified life.
Mamdani steadfastly staying on his campaign-long message, making New York City affordable for everyone. If Curtis Sliwa bows to pressure to leave this race that all agree he cannot statistically win, to pull out as Eric Adams has already done, this becomes a very different race.
I am not dropping out.
And so this is the second and final debate that we're going to see between these 3 candidates. Politico decided that Zohran Mamdani won the first one by steadfastly staying on his message, avoiding any missteps. We, of course, will be looking forward to see what happens tonight. We're live at LaGuardia College, Long Island City. I'm Kirsten Cole, Pix 11 News. Back to you, Vanessa and Craig.
On to the wire, Kirsten. Thank you so much. And of course, we got you covered every step of the way. This week, catch the 3rd and final interview In the special Picks on Politics series, Dan Manarino goes one-on-one with Zohran Mamdani ahead of early voting beginning on Saturday. Get your questions in. Check out the Pix 11 Facebook and Instagram pages for a place to add what you want to see Mamdani address. And of course, catch that full interview this Friday at 6:30 p.m.
Pix 11 is your local election headquarters, and we are recapping the final face-off between the three candidates for New York City mayor.
None of them were going down without a fight last night.
You can see in Andrew Cuomo someone who had 10 years to deliver on so much of what he's spoken about. He says that taking 5 years to build affordable housing is the sign of an incompetent government.
You have never had a job. You've never accomplished anything. There's no reason to believe you have any merit or qualification for 8.5 million lives. You don't know how to run a government. You don't know how to handle an emergency. And you've literally never proposed a bill.
Heard the both of them again fighting like kids in the schoolyard. Zohran, your resume could fit on a cocktail napkin, and Andrew, your failures could fill a public school library in New York City.
Okay, then. Well, joining us this morning to weigh in on who came out ahead is political analyst J.C. Polanco from the University of Mount St. Vincent. Always good to see you again, J.C. Okay, they covered.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, listen, they covered a lot of ground last night, making that final push for the undecided voters. But who had the most to prove going into this debate?
Well, that's a tough question. Everyone up there had a lot to prove. It was their last opportunity to speak directly to New York City voters. I called it the thriller in Manila. It was a great debate. We were all engaged, and they came prepared. I think yesterday, it was the first time since June that we saw such an incredible communicator in Assemblyman Mamdani get ruffled up a little bit. We saw him get ruffled up by Governor Cuomo and Mr. Sliwa a couple of times, and that was the first time we've seen that happen. And it looks as if Andrew Cuomo may have had a Red Bull before coming into this debate because he was ready. He came down with his list of experience, why he's ready for the job, and did not mince words with the lack of experience of Assemblyman Mamdani. But at the end of the night, we all saw the passion behind Curtis Sliwa. Look, Curtis Sliwa represented last night the frustration of tens of thousands of outer borough New York City voters who are angry at the criminal justice system and how progressive it's become. And he was a great advocate for them last night, filled with energy. The city won last night because we got to see an incredible debate.
Yeah, so let's get down to the dirty here. They started off the whole debate with the ICE raids in Chinatown. Here's what the candidates had to say, and then we'll talk about it on the other side.
We don't need ICE to do quality of life crimes. We don't need them to worry about illegal vendors. That's a basic policing function for NYPD.
ICE is a reckless entity that cares little for the law and even less for the people that they're supposed to serve. What we need to be doing here in our city is to end the chapter of collaboration between City Hall and the federal government, which we've seen under Mayor Adams.
The feds should not have stepped into this situation. There is not communication between the local authorities and the feds. This is a matter that should have been left up to the NYPD. But we can't tolerate citizens attacking our federal law enforcement forces in the street.
Okay, so here's what's noticeable. JC, no one mentioned the sanctuary city laws, and Curtis Lee was the only one who actually admonished the protesters. What did you make of it?
It was interesting. They all agreed, though, that the feds should not have come in here. And I found that to be interesting. That was an opportunity for Sliwa to actually go on the attack to the other two, something he's been doing throughout the debates. The apprentice and the architect. That's been his line to connect both of them, to figure out a way to connect with voters across the city. He didn't mention that, so points off on that. But what I found interesting that they all agreed on this matter. Now, to his credit, Governor Cuomo points out that these are some of the things that a mayor is going to have to deal with daily. And unless you have the experience to deal with the White House and to deal with all of these issues, we're going to be in trouble. And I think he did an effective job on that comeback.
Well, you know, all of the candidates also agreed to keep NYPD Commissioner Jessica Tisch in her role. But when it comes to closing Rikers down, there were some very different ideas. Who do you think had the most realistic response to the question?
Curtis Sliwa and Andrew Cuomo had the most realistic response. 2027 is around the corner. Yeah. It's just not enough time to build all those new jails in our neighborhoods. And I think that they spoke to the frustration of people like me who live in the Bronx who don't want to have jails in our neighborhoods so that kids get to see those on their way to school. Why do that? And I think that they focus on that. They did a very good job. And this is where it gets interesting. If you do follow the plan Governor Cuomo and Mr. Sliwa said today, last night, if you do follow the plan to close Rikers, that means that 4,000 prisoners are going to just be let out into the streets, sending a clear message to the rest of us in the city that law and order is still up there on the forefront of issues that New Yorkers care about.
They also talked about Donald Trump, how they were going to work with him, how they were planning to work with the president. Let's listen to what they had to say.
You can't beat Trump. He holds most of the cards. He's already cut federal funding for Medicaid, for the SNAP program, and it's threatened to cut funds for NYCHA. So if you're all of a sudden going to get adversarial, you're going to lose. And who gets hurt? The people of New York City.
He has said he'll take over New York if Mamdani wins, and he will, because he has no respect for him. He thinks he's a kid, and he's going to knock him on his tuchus.
You will hear Donald Trump share that his pick for mayor is Andrew Cuomo. And he wants Andrew Cuomo to be the mayor, not because it will be good for New Yorkers, but because it will be good for him.
So what do you think, JC?
Look, the truth is, you want to poke the bear when we need money for the city? I think that was the argument that Andrew Cuomo and Mr. Sliwa were making last night. But Mamdani represents the voice of many New York progressives that are angry at President Trump and want to push back no matter what, even if it means looking for a fight. The other two, especially with Governor Cuomo's position, he's had to deal with those negotiations with the White House. He understands how important it is to have a rapport. So, in other words, elect me. I know what to do with this guy. I know how to speak with him. You elect him, it's over. He's going to be run over by the White House, and we need the White House for funding. Clearly, you need to have an understanding of management, have the experience how to deal with the White House to be mayor. And that was a very interesting position yesterday by Governor Cuomo during that debate.
All right. Well, we already know there were a lot of jabs throughout the night. Let's go ahead and take a listen to a few.
We just had a former governor say in his own words that the city has been getting screwed by the state. Who was leading the state? It was you.
Governor Hochul. Zoran, stop dealing with fantasy and start dealing with reality. You're pushing businesses out because you want to tax them. I'm the only one here who wants to cut the corporate taxes, the income tax, the property tax we can cut in order to keep business here.
The voters are going to have to decide in this election what candidate has the plan to save the city and what candidate can get it done, not just talk about it. My main opponent has no new ideas. He has no new plan. It's Bill de Blasio rehash, and we know how that turned out.
All right. How much do these, these jabs at each other, how do they help or hurt these campaigns?
They go viral. They help a great deal. And some of those guys up there, with the exception of Assemblyman Mamdani, need to go viral 2 weeks out, right? So that's why those jabs matter. I liked Assemblyman Mamdani's, "It was you." I think that was great. You got to give him a point. I couldn't stop laughing. That was really good. But then you got to see the opponents come out looking for their time to shine. They did a very good job countering who is the master communicator up on that stage by pointing out his albatross. Assemblyman's albatross is his lack of experience. We know what Governor Cuomo's albatross is, the issues and the scandals in Albany. Those are some of the things we saw throughout the night. And of course, Mr. Sliwa is seen as that bombastic, so someone called him the crazy uncle. Not me, Curtis. I never said that. Someone else did. But you got to see the spirit of the individual characters. We saw them as authentic yesterday because they know that this decision is going to be made by a handful of folks that were looking at this debate to determine who should be the CEO of New York City government. And as of right now, if you take a look at the polls, it is Assemblyman Mamdani on cruise control, unless former Governor Cuomo and Curtis Sliwa manage to bring their voters together so that they can defeat Assemblyman Mamdani. There's still 2 weeks left. Early voting starts on Saturday. Some of the most interesting times in New York City politics are about to come.
Well, I mean, Sliwa has made it very clear he's not dropping out of this race. So based on the performances last night, do you think it's enough to make a difference either way?
I think there is. I think that last night, it is fair to say that you can see voters waiting for the next poll. The next poll is critical. If it shows that Governor Cuomo has gone up 5-6 points, there has to be a moment for Republicans to see that that is the only way that you are able to defeat some of the Democratic Socialists of America position. And maybe Curtis Sliwa or maybe some Republicans will give him the green light to go support the opposition. Look, I said it several times on your program, guys. If the USSR and the USA could get together to defeat Nazi Germany, if you can see Lincoln and Johnson get together to defeat McClellan, you could go down to the history of times where strange bedfellows have gotten together. Opponents have gotten together to defeat a common enemy. We've seen it happen. Currently here you have the opposition that presents the majority of voters across the city that are able to defeat the Democratic Socialists of America. Perhaps in the next 2 weeks there'll be a moment of a mutual meeting of the minds, and maybe you'll see it happen. That's why I think we're going to come into some interesting times in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, and a decision that probably won't happen the night of Election Day. JC, always great to see you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much for having me.
And reminder, early voting starts Saturday and runs through Sunday, November 2nd. And it's 8:44 right now. We'll be right back.
The candidates for New York City mayor in their final debate took off the gloves and came out swinging. They attacked one another personally and blasted their rivals' policy ideas, all in an effort to convince New Yorkers who is the best qualified to lead the city. Pix 11's Kalaramba joining us live in the studio with all the details and all the jabs.
And it is so clear that being the last debate, they just didn't hold back. Yep. They all felt they had nothing to lose and really went for it. The question is, did it really resonate with audiences? Debate night turned into fight night, and the weapon of choice, words, tearing each other's resumes apart.
You know, if you want a candidate for mayor who tells you everything that he cannot do, then Andrew Cuomo should be your choice.
There's no reason to believe you have any merit or qualification for 8.5 million lives. You don't know how to run a government, you don't know how to handle an emergency, and you've literally never proposed a bill.
Zoran, your resume could fit on a cocktail napkin, and Andrew, your failures could fill a public school library in New York City.
When it comes to public safety, candidates agree NYPD Commissioner Jessica Tisch is doing a solid job. But when it comes to violent juveniles, Curtis Sliwa broke off from the pack and does not support New York's Raise the Age law, which prohibits charging anyone under 18 as an adult.
I almost lost my oldest son to gang violence, and the perpetrators went to family court and got a little pat on the wrist. We need to start charging juveniles who commit violent crime in criminal court.
Both Cuomo and Sliwa accuse Mamdani of furthering rising anti-Semitism.
Denounce globalize the intifada, which means kill Jews.
They view you as the arsonist who fanned the flames of anti-Semitism.
I have never, not once, spoken in support of global jihad.
You know, and we say that the election is November 4th, right? But early voting starts October 25th. That's this Saturday. So really, this debate had to make their impact if they were going to change any minds.
Pix 11 is your local election headquarters, and this morning we are unveiling brand new exclusive polling in both the race for New York City mayor and the race for New Jersey governor.
That's right. Senior political reporter Henry Rossoff is here to break down all of these numbers, and one of these races super tight like we talked about earlier. The other one a runaway in the race for New York City mayor, but there's a lot of interesting developments in this poll.
Yeah, let's start over New Jersey because, as you say, Dan, that is the significantly closer race at this point. New exclusive polling from Pix 11, Emerson College and The Hill shows Democratic Socialist Zoran Mamdani poised to become the next mayor of New York, but again, much tighter in New Jersey. Let's get right to the numbers, and we broke them down to the decimal point because it's so close. We really did want to give you as complete a picture as possible. So Democratic Congresswoman Mikey Sherrill at 49.3% and Jack Ciattarelli at 47.9%. I know it's early. I know you just dropped the kids at school. I'll do the math for you. That's 1.4%. Very few undecided voters, but we did push people to decide, you know, the best that they could, which way they're leaning, and that helped Sherrill a little bit. She comes up about 2 percentage points ahead of Chitterelli here. So your leaners might be breaking for Cheryl, which is an early indication of a very close race. Now, let's move over to the issues in New Jersey, because it far and away remains jobs, inflation, taxes, all your economic issues, 52% right here. Threats to democracy, 14%. Mainly Democrats concerned about President Trump and housing affordability, another economic issue at 11%. And finally, let's wrap up with a look over at what's happening in New York City, because this poll, I will admit, is a little bit different than some of the polling you've been seeing out there. Zohran Mamdani, 34-year-old Democratic socialist, really poised in our polling to become the next mayor of New York, which would be an absolutely historic rise in politics. A 25-point lead over former Governor Andrew Cuomo, and a 29-point lead over Republican Curtis Sliwa. Very few undecided voters left. And Dan and Hazel, as we were discussing last hour, and as you've been discussing with analysts all morning, Mamdani even doing well with older New Yorkers who are coming out in droves, so that's not necessarily a straight line advantage for former Governor Cuomo.
Yeah, we were talking also about who is showing up to the polls right now. I mean, you were there 4 years ago to today, and the overwhelming number of people who are showing up this go-around.
Yeah, and that is an argument that the Cuomo team is making, that the modeling is not quite accurate because we could see so many more voters as opposed to past years. There's not much we really have to say about that. I will note that Emerson was closest in the primary. This is another Emerson poll, so, you know, perhaps they're seeing something others are not. We will find out.
Yeah, I mean, Cuomo campaign called that poll an outlier 2 days ago. We're saying, look at how tight these races getting, with citing certain polls. 3 days later, they're saying polls are meaningless. We'll see what happens on election day.
Outliers, the same word they used in June.
Exactly.
Yeah, and the weather is cooperating, so we're bound to have lots of great voters out there.
Minus today.
Minus today. Starting Tuesday. It'll look good. And a reminder that early voting continues through Sunday polling hours, very slightly tomorrow for Halloween. Saturday and Sunday polls are open from 9 a.m. until 5 p.m. So make sure you go out and vote. Your vote definitely matters.